Oh, it is post vacation. As you can see, Coach Kyra has a tan, and I'm here to talk about what I did wrong. I gained 7 pounds over the past 6 days being on vacation, and I want to talk about my strategy for regrouping, what went wrong, what I'm going to do to make progress toward my goal. Again, this is not an end all be all. This is not the end of the world. And I want to give you this education so that you can apply this strategy when it's time for you to travel. It's the summertime. It's time for us to move around. It's time for us to enjoy a little bit more flexibility. So I want you to take what we'll talk about today and apply it to your own life. Okay. I'm going to talk about myself for just a second. Give me 10 minutes or so to kind of walk through this. Let me get my screen shared with you. And I hope you are doing well. Thank you so much for being here. All right. First things first. I want to talk to you all about what happened. Okay. I went on vacation. I wish I could post pictures here, but I'm doing this kind of on a whim. But I went on vacation. It was a wonderful time. I had a blast. I'm from Houston, Texas. And as you know, Houston, Texas is like the food capital of the South, honey. I ate everything. Nothing was off limits. Okay. However, in eating everything, I overconsumed calories. And we want to think about calories as like your spending budget. Okay. In terms of calories, I overspent on my budget while I was away. Okay. Calories are energy to the body. And so when you overspend or you overconsume energy to the body, that does something to your body. And we'll talk about what that is in just a second. Calories come from proteins, carbs, and fats. We won't get into macronutrients, which these three things are right now. Calories can also come from micronutrients like vitamin K, vitamin D, fill in the blank. We're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to talk about over consuming nutrients, overeating, going on vacation, and having a whole bunch of fun, and what you need to do after that. Okay. So if calories are energy to your body, this is how the energy that you eat turns into extra pounds on the scale. Okay. One, you eat calories. Two, the calories that you eat either get used right then and there for immediate energy or get stored for later energy because you already have energy available. I'll talk about that here in just a second. Step three, stored calories, right? So you ate some calories. The calories either got used right now or got stored to use for later. If the calories got stored to use for later, those stored calories either get used later or become body fat. Okay. You can burn calories before they get stored, or you can use up what's in the storage unit. Okay. I wish I was doing this live so I could know what questions you all had while I was walking through this. But here we go. We have calories, and from the calories, they can be used right now for energy, or they can be stored for later. I'm just going to reiterate this just a second. I'm going to go into detail in just a second. Bear with me. From your stored calories, they can either get used again a little bit later, or they can get stored as body fat. Okay, BF, body fat. You can burn up the calories before they get stored, or you can use up the stored energy or the body fat. I'm going to talk about how to do both in just a second. Okay. I want you to think about what we're doing though, as like decorating the interior of your home. Okay. I want you to think about calories and food consumption and food storage as your house. Okay. When we think about calories and macronutrients, protein is like the brick that builds your house. Okay. You can definitely utilize all of your protein to build your house. And most people aren't eating too much protein. Okay. If you're eating too much protein, we can have a conversation about it. But most people are not eating too much protein. So protein is just building up your house. We want to eat enough protein. When it comes to carbs and fats, right? Fats can typically be the glue that keeps the brick together until we eat too much fat. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then carbohydrates become the stuff inside of the house. Okay, so let me explain that again. We have three macronutrients which calories are made up of. Okay, calories can become proteins, carbs, and fat. Protein is the brick that builds your house. Fats are the glue that holds the brick together, and you only need as much as you need to hold the brick, right? Carbohydrates then are the stuff that go inside of the house. And we want to control how much stuff we have inside of the house. Because if we have too much stuff inside of your home, one, this is called a hoarding situation, and it's really bad. It's kind of what got us into this circumstance to begin with, right? The reason why you're seeing this video is because we might have had too much stuff inside of our house, too much body fat, too much carbohydrate, okay? Then If you have too much stuff inside of your house, you might need an external storage unit for the stuff, which is where this comes into play. Body fat comes into play. Okay. So we have calories that come from proteins, carbs, and fats. Those calories can either get used right now or can be stored for later. You can catch the calories before they get stored. We'll talk about that. Those stored calories either get used later or become body fat energy. Okay. You can burn your calories before they get stored or use up what's in the storage unit and utilize all of the stored energy that's inside of your house. Your body fat is stored energy. Okay. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. So the question we want to answer is how much stuff is in your house? How much extra stuff is in your house? We have the protein, which is the foundation, the building. We have the fat, which is the glue that holds the building together. But in terms of carbohydrate, we either have enough carbohydrate to live in the house, too much carbohydrate to overwhelm the house, or more than too much carbohydrate, which then becomes this. Okay. We want to make room in our home to deal with the clutter. You following? All right. I hope this analogy is landed with you. You following? Yes? Okay, cool. All right. So we want to talk about using the energy that became extra stuff in the house. That's what happened. Went on vacation, ate a whole bunch of stuff, ate a whole bunch of extra carbohydrate. The extra carbohydrate became extra stuff. I need to catch it before it overwhelms my home and before it multiplies and turns into something I'm going to have to put into a storage unit, which is body fat for later. All right. Okay, cool. What went wrong, right? Coach, you're saying all this stuff about protein, carbs, and fats. Like, what happened? Okay. What happened was I typically eat like this, right? And so like if you're seeing this video, you probably mostly eat like this too, or you're trying to make your way toward eating mostly like this, mostly fiber, mostly whole food, mostly protein, right? You typically tend to do pretty well when it comes to your nutritional choices. Okay, you care about your nutritional choices. However, we've been given a food pyramid that kind of starts to prioritize this like white refined carbohydrate. And here's the problem with refined carbohydrate. Refined carbs, specifically bleached carbs like sugar and pasta and bread and candy and fill in the blank. These types of carbohydrates have been stripped of their fiber and therefore stripped of their nutrient. Okay. Eating too much of this stuff has a long list of complications when it comes to your health. Metabolic health, chronic disease, lifestyle disease like diabetes type 2, hypertension, high blood pressure, fill in the blank are all tied to the way that you eat. Okay. And so we've been sold that our nutrition needs to center upon this style of eating, but that's not true. Okay. However, what went wrong over this past week is that I was in a food environment that I couldn't control. I was gone for 6 days away from my food, the way I grocery shop, the way I like to eat. I was eating with other people. That's a very complex circumstance. We can talk about that later. But I chose not to be the type of person who like went and bought all my food and didn't eat what other people were eating. I can't have that. I chose not to do that, right? Because that's not the life I want to live. I want to be the type of person who I can have flexibility when it's time to be flexible, right? I can enjoy when it's time to enjoy. And that's what I define this moment as, okay? So I went out of town, couldn't control my food environment. And that meant that the majority of what I ate while I was gone was carbohydrate. I don't think I had more than maybe 4 or 5 servings of protein while I was away. I don't think I had more than one protein source per day while I was gone. Right. And so you think like, oh, she's a nutrition coach. Like she knows how to do this thing. I chose not to do it. Okay. And so while I was gone, I probably had like 5 servings of protein. It was rough. It was tough. Right. Eating high carbohydrate. I was hungry every hour. It was really, really rough. However, that's what went wrong because I was not satiated. One, I was not full because I was eating so much carbohydrate, right? I was eating so much refined carbohydrate because fiber like vegetables and fruits are carbohydrate as well. We'll talk about that later. One, I wasn't full when I was doing this. So that meant that I got hungry maybe every 90 minutes to 2 hours. I was eating often because I was not full because my diet was missing this stuff. Yeah. Okay. Two, because I wasn't full and because I was eating a whole bunch of carbohydrate, right? Carbohydrate does something funny to the body. Okay. It literally has it in its name, hydrate. Carbohydrate. That means that for every gram of carbohydrate, this is yellow circle right here, for every gram of carbohydrate that you eat, it's automatically going to attract something like 3 or 4 grams of water every time you eat a gram of carbohydrate. That means that on the scale, I could have really absolutely gained a pound of body fat while I was away. But because of the hydrate of carbohydrate, the carbs that I ate also attracted water to itself, which meant that what I'm holding on to is not just carbs, it's also the water around the carbs. Okay. That said, I never got full. Therefore, I was always eating and always eating carbohydrate because there wasn't a lot of this stuff available, right? Or I chose not to make sure that a lot of this stuff was available because I didn't want to be that type of person at the family reunion. Okay. 2, I had more carbohydrate than usual, which meant that as I'm consuming more food, that the more carbohydrate food that I'm eating is attracting more and more water, right? If you saw my Instagram video today, you saw like, oh, she doesn't look very different. If anything, she actually looks a little bit better. Yeah, because my muscles are full of water. You see all of this? My muscles are full of water. They look bigger, right? So all that to say, we don't worry about stuff like this because we can correct it. And remember, what we're eating either gets stored to use later or gets utilized right now. So we'll talk about that. What am I going to do right now to get back on track? And what should you do right this moment when you return from vacation or you return from the family weekend or fill in the blank? What should you do right now to get back on track? Step 1, I'm going to return to the way that I eat. I'm back in my food environment. Vacation is over. Family reunion is over. I took yesterday. I slept all day yesterday. It was glorious. It was wonderful. But today I'm going to return to the way that I eat, which is protein and veggie central. Protein and vegetable central. I'm going to give you a visual of what this looks like in just another slide. It also has nuts and seeds, a little bit of fruit, a little bit of starch, and very little added sugar or carbohydrate. I just don't eat that stuff. I don't eat a whole bunch of bread. I don't eat a whole bunch of pasta. It's not the majority of my diet. The majority of my diet is protein and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and a little bit of fruit, a little bit of starch, very little added sugar or refined carbohydrate. Okay, so this is what it looks like. What it looks like is this. I call this the beginner's plate. And when we start working together, we'll have an in-depth conversation about what your nutrition looks like. But in general, this is where we want to be. You see, protein and fiber are the majority of these meals. You see a little bit of starch from the potato, sweet potato. You see a little bit of refined carbohydrate from the rice or the pasta. You see some fruit. You see some greens. This is what the majority of my nutrition and your nutrition needs to look like if you're someone who is focused on body composition, overall health, longevity, lifestyle goals. This is what your nutrition needs to look like. Okay. But this is where most of us are. This is where the majority of people are, right? Where we're doing a decent job, but because we might eat with other people, we might eat with the family, might eat with the kids might be a little bit picky. And so we have to be very cautious and meticulous about what happens in the nutrition throughout the week. We might have more complex meals, right? More complex types of proteins, more sauces, more starches. For example, you see like potatoes and corn here, or more taco type of deals. And these are like standard normal meals. We can take your standard normal meals and improve upon them to make them more so in line with the overall goal that you have for your body composition. Okay. And then we have D-rated meals, which like are really hard to track, number one. So like if I have you tracking your food and specifically tracking your food, like using calories or macros or tracking your protein, fill in the blank, these types of foods are really hard to keep track of. They're super duper hard to get accurately, super hard to track. Okay. So with this, we want to be very thoughtful about trying to do a really good job of eating these A style meals and understanding that most of the time we might have B or C style meals. We can optimize the rest of our day to make sure we're making nutrition choices that are aligned with our goals. We kind of want to do a little bit less of the D-rated meals that are difficult to kind of track. They don't have any fiber. They have really complex proteins, a whole bunch of fat. Like we want to stay away from this type of stuff. I'm happy to go into more detail about what this looks like. Let me know in the caption or in the chat if you need a little bit more on that. But this is what I did while I was away. What I did the majority of the time that I was away looked a lot like this. Pizza, fried things, sandwiches, ice cream, that. It looked like this. Okay. And so when it comes to my food rating, all I have to do is stop doing this and start doing this. And I guarantee you by the end of the week, I'll be right back to where I started. And I'm happy to show you, right? I'm happy to show you on Instagram what happens when it's time to bounce back. Okay. But I'm going to go from what I did while I was on vacation. I did a whole bunch of this. I had no guilt around it whatsoever. Okay. I'm just going to go back to what I do. Right. That's what I did. I'm just coming back to what I do. And that's the message that I want to leave you with, right? It's like, how do you bounce back after a moment like this. One, expect that as you come back home, you might get a little bit bored. You might feel a little bit daunted by the idea of coming back to your new normal, right? I want you to think about this as a relationship that you have with yourself and your nutrition. One, if you decide that you're going to be married to your health goals, you decide that you're going to be married for life. There is no exit from your health goals. The exit from your health goal is illness. So as you come back to this, I want you to anticipate that you're not going to want to. And as you don't want to, it's really important to determine why you're going to anyway. I am not excited about eating spinach again because French fries taste so good. But why? Why am I still going to make that effort to come back to what I know? Okay. I need to have a preparedness plan, right? And that's my menu. That's my strategy. That's like my calendar. What does this look like in terms of practice? What does this look like on a really bad day? Say, for example, I picked something up in the travel, picked up COVID or something. What's the worst day plan to get back on track? What's my next day as soon as possible plan? And for me, my next day plan is while I'm in transit, either on the plane or in the Uber or fill in the blank, I'm placing my grocery order. I know what's going to be in my fridge. I'm setting myself up for success. Resistance training is really important when we talk about leveraging all of this extra food that you just had, right? You're going to be tempted to go and do cardio after you have a fun weekend or a fun week. You're going to be tempted to do cardio, but that is suboptimal. Don't do cardio. Take that extra food, take the carbohydrates, and use it to fuel some of your best training that you'll have this month. Use that to go and build something. Use the extra calories to go and build something. Okay. You have all of this extra resource, blood and carbohydrate and sugar and fat and all this stuff that feeds muscle. Use it to build muscle. To be completely honest, I think I've had a very unique case of success on my specific journey because I used this loop. I overate the carbohydrate or food calories, right? And then I come back and I put it into the muscles. And then the muscles burn more calories. And I'd eat more calories and put it into the muscle. And muscle burn calories, calories into the muscle burns calories, right? Muscle burns 7 calories per pound, whereas body fat only burns 2 calories per pound. So simply by taking the calories that I ate and putting that into building new muscle, I am making myself more metabolically healthy, more metabolically active. I'm increasing my metabolism. It's an investment right now into building something, and it's also an investment into later, which keeps me healthy and keeps my weight regulated long term. Take your behind to the gym and do your resistance training. And when you do your resistance training, we can talk in more detail about what this looks like, but we really want to focus on high reps, high effort. Okay. You want to focus on something like 15 to 20 reps per set, something like 3 to 5 sets of whatever movement that you're doing, 15 to 20 reps per set, and maybe something around just like 45 to 60 seconds rest. This is going to be your hardest training, right? Your recovery training from going on vacation when you come back is going to be your hardest training. 3 to 5 sets, 15 to 20 reps with only 45 to 60 seconds rest in between. It's called glycogen depletion. We want to take all that carb sugar that's in your muscles and we want to force it out. Okay, that's what this is. Your protein. We want your protein to return to normal levels, something like 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. But most people don't know what their lean body mass is. So most people will get their protein target in 4 to 5 servings of protein, 4 to 5 servings of protein a day. Okay. And then water retention in the scale. Stay hydrated. You want to have something like 2 liters of water every day. And then you want to ignore the scale. You can pay attention to watching the water fluctuate and kind of drop back down to where you started, but you kind of want to ignore the scale entirely. Okay. Ignore the scale because it's only reflecting water, right? What happened over your vacation cannot be body fat because body fat, 1 pound of body fat equals 3,500 calories. And if you know anything about calories, you know 3,500 calories is a lot of food. It's a whole pizza, one pizza. It is 10 Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches. 3,500 calories, bags of chips. Oh my God. It's like maybe 100 bags of chips, right? You're not doing this type of eating, right? And so the weight that you gained on vacation was not body fat. It was mostly water because carbohydrates attract water to themselves. So as you're watching the scale, watch your scale as you return to normal. Watch the scale return to normal as well, and don't worry about it. Take the calories that you eat. Put them into the loop of muscle building because that's what we want. No, you're not going to become a bodybuilder. If you wanted to become a bodybuilder, you should have started that 20 years ago. You're too late. You're too late to be a bodybuilder. But what you can do is build enough muscle to make you metabolically active, to give you that tone that you're looking for, and to keep you strong and healthy into old age. Okay. All right, cool. I hope that was helpful. I wanted to talk in more detail about what I'm going to do to get back on track now that I'm back home, what this needs to look like, maybe give you a little bit of education and some skill practice so that you can bring yourself back to normal when it's time for you to come back to normal as well. If you have any questions, type them down here in the chat function. I'm happy to answer them for you. And I look forward to connecting again really, really soon. Talk to you later.